Hi, my name is Sharon Sandoval, and I joined La Raza Unida around 1970, the City Terrace chapter. I want to tell you a little bit about my immediate background to finally doing that. And my brother was killed in 1967 in Vietnam. I was really angry, and I didn't understand why this country had put my brother in a place whose name we didn't even understand at the time. In any case, a year later, I was pretty much a raving revolutionary, learning that a lot of things that this country stood for and claimed it did was simply not true. And being involved in Vietnam, it seemed that everyone was becoming well aware of it being a terrible mistake. I worked at the Cal State campus for a number of years and went to school there as well, so there was a lot of political activity going on at that time. I heard about La Raza Unida, well, actually, before I joined and right after my brother was killed, I signed up for the Young Workers' Liberation League, which was an arm of the Communist Party USA. And it had a mix of white and Latino persons in it. The Communist Party had also set up a second group called Che Lumumba, and that was made up of African Americans. In any case, I found out about La Raza from a person that I worked with on campus, and she said something very telling. Why was I having to drive over to the other side of town to be involved in community activities when I could be doing it right in my own community? And that really struck a chord. So I went with her to the next meeting, and the rest was really history for me. It felt right, it felt appropriate, and the Chicano movement was something that I had already been involved in some ways. The City Terrace chapter was unique in a variety of ways. First, it had, everybody was an activist, but we came from different aspects of the left political spectrum. There were Trotskyites, there were Maoists, there were people from the Communist Party, and there were people that were very serious Mexican nationalists. And everybody belonged to La Raza Unida City Terrace chapter. It is kind of amazing how we worked together on issues and didn't let those things stand in our way. Raul Ruiz was the leader of our chapter. He'd been around for quite a while and was eventually made me the secretary treasurer to take care of the books, such as they were. We met every Tuesday evening. We did pay dues. I don't remember them being very much at all, and most people couldn't afford to pay them anyway. I remember a chapter in La Puente and a chapter in Northridge. The one in Northridge was very active, but I don't remember the other chapters, which I'm sure were around at that time. I just can't think of them right now. Some of the unique things that happened during my years at La Raza Unida was, one, we decided to try to incorporate East Los Angeles. And we set up a whole big campaign, and we ran people to take the place of a city council and a mayor if in fact we were successful in incorporating the city. Well, we failed, but the people that did run for the other positions obviously had nowhere to go, with the exception of one person who got the most votes, which was Raul Ruiz. And we would tease him about being a mayor without a city. There was something else that happened at Larazo over the years, and it actually was pretty amazing. A public television station was being created. It's called Channel 68. And Manuel, I've forgotten his last name. I think it was Barrera. Manuel was instrumental. He had a relationship with the people working on setting up this channel. And Raul got involved toward the end too, and what they were able to work out for us was to have 3 hours of airtime a week. They wouldn't let us use the editing equipment at all, so whatever we put together, it would stay the way we did it. We decided we would put together a program, a half hour in English and a half hour in Spanish, called La Raza Magazine, and it would be on a particular topic every week. And then we would simply run it 3 times during the week, because there was no way we could put together more than an hour. You also have to understand that none of us had any experience using 3 cameras, and it was a 3-camera setup, which is pretty sophisticated, or being in front of the camera, which I did for the English part. We had another woman who did the Spanish part. We didn't understand anything. We didn't know what we were doing, but we did manage to put together several programs, which unfortunately now don't exist, and I wish they did. The first one I did had to do with forced sterilization at LA County Hospital. And I actually was able to get a doctor to come in and talk to me, along with a couple of women that were handling a class action suit against the hospital for forced sterilization. This was kind of amazing when you think about it. There were other issues we covered over about an 8 or 9 month period, and then everything just sort of fell apart. But that was quite an experience, and we were glad we did it. I want to talk a little bit about a really special thing that happened in 1975. Jose Angel Gutierrez was able to get an invitation from Cuba to La Raza, and we were billed as the first Chicanos to be invited to Cuba. Mexico worked to have this happen as well, and they were very instrumental in getting us there. We went through Mexico. We were stuck there for 2 or 3 days, very anxious to get to Cuba. Normally we'd be very interested in Mexico, but this was a very exciting trip. In any case, the way it was put together is that Angel told our chapter that we could have 3 or 4 people. We had to select them. And there were people coming from Chicago, and of course people from Tejas and from other chapters. We were 3 people, myself, Raul, and Zapata. Also, I don't know who decided on this, but CBS News team sent Ed Rabel, who was pretty well known at that time, and his assistants from CBS to go along with us so they could document this amazing first-time experience. There are pictures that I've provided, stills that I've had over the years, and there's no information on them, but as you see them, I hope some will be self-explanatory. They're all about things that we did in Cuba. One of the things that was pretty amazing in Cuba, among other things, they took us everywhere, they showed us everything, they answered our questions. They put us up in what used to be the Hilton Havana, now called the Havana Libre Hotel. And they were very generous with us, very kind. It was amazing what was happening in Cuba then, because a people that had been pretty much denied much education and anything else in the way of good housing and medical care and so forth was really radically changing, and quickly. Teachers were teaching other teachers who were there. The medical people were getting stronger and more people were getting involved in it. We just saw many things that were very hopeful and really suggested a kind of society that cares about all its people, not just a few. A couple of things that were really interesting when we were in Cuba is that we went the end of April through early May, and it was the year that Saigon fell, which from the perspective of the Vietnamese, and it should be from the perspective of the United States, it meant that the Vietnamese won the war against us. And it was pretty interesting to be in a country where they were celebrating the winning of the war, rather than being in this country that was saying that wasn't exactly what had happened and so forth. But it happened that this celebration took place on the Workers' Day Parade, which is internationally known as May 1st. And I'll never forget this, was a big stadium, outside stadium, filled with people, thousands and thousands of people. And Fidel Castro started the march with two Vietnamese women, one dressed in military garb on his left, and one dressed in the traditional Vietnam garb that you would wear, representing the country. And he marched with them, and everyone was very jubilant and happy and excited to be able to celebrate their victory, particularly over the United States. But you'll recall that France had been there earlier, but they were smart and they pulled out pretty quickly. Well, I could go on and on. One of the things I probably should go back to with respect to the Partido, particularly City Terrace chapter, is that we had, at that time, a magazine called Raza. Prior to that, there had a newspaper had been created early on. Raul, actually, I think it was called something covering Isla. But where it really began is in Lincoln Heights with Father, I forgot his name, Father Lucha, in the Church of the, what's the name of it? I've forgotten. The Church of the David.
Epiphany.
I've written it down, I can't read my handwriting, but in any case, it was in Lincoln Heights where this took place, and it began, that's where the first newspaper began, and there were a lot of people, a lot of volunteers there. Many of the people that did this, that got involved with the magazine early on, were photographers. Well, there's several people. I've got a long list of people who were some of the first supporters. But they were photographers and trying to capture what was really going on in the community through their cameras. And then ultimately, at the point where I got to La Raza Unida, we had La Raza magazine, which continued on writing relevant stories for the Chicano community. Well, there's probably a lot more to say, but I'm sure you're tired of listening to me struggle here. It's been a long time and hard to put together all the pieces, but I really feel very lucky having been a part of La Raza Unida, and I congratulate those of you that are together today celebrating 50 years. Thank you.